Tonight, healthcare showdown. The White House says Americans will know where the president stands on the issue when he speaks to Congress just 3 days from today. I'm Russ Mitchell. Also tonight, a feud over food. Critics charge new labels promise a healthy choice, but often don't deliver on it. Fire safety controversy.
I told you to get out. You need to get out now.
Can design changes protect houses and people from out-of-control wildfires? And Design Star, how a 13-year-old cancer patient became a NASCAR winner.
This is the CBS Evening News with Russ Mitchell.
And good evening. As we observe this unofficial last weekend of summer, the Obama administration is gearing up for a busy week as it relaunches its massive push for health care reform. Today, President Obama's top advisors hit the airwaves. The debate on Capitol Hill is heating up again. And on Wednesday, the president takes his case directly to the public. Kimberly Dozier has the latest.
More security.
After months of speeches, interviews, and town hall meetings, this Wednesday, the president will tell Congress and the American people something they haven't heard before, exactly what he wants to see in health care reform.
People will leave that speech knowing where he stands.
That may answer whether President Obama will insist on the controversial public option, a government-provided health insurance alternative. The White House was still avoiding directly answering that question today.
He believes the public option is a good tool. Now, it shouldn't define the whole health care debate, however.
But after the media read that soundbite as a retreat from the public plan, the White House fired back that it's still their preferred option. It's just not a deal breaker. Until now, the White House has resisted drafting its own bill, instead offering general ideas. The president wanted Congress to come up with the specifics in bipartisan legislation, so he wouldn't be accused of dictating a plan. But that's given the president's opposition free rein to frame the debate.
They don't even belong here, and I'm paying for it.
And the intense media focus on the normal, ugly, bruising process of drafting any bill, the political squabbling, the missed deadlines, has turned the American public off. They've blamed the president, and now he's got to win them back.
This is probably the make or break week for President Obama's health care plan.
The latest opinion polls show Mr. Obama's national approval rating has dropped to 56%, according to a September 1st CBS News poll. That's the lowest to date during his term, and down from 68% in April. But he's still arguably the most popular politician in the land.
They still very much like the president personally, so I think he's going to use his own star power to try and sell that to Congress.
One thing it has done is spook some of those lawmakers into action. Senator Max Baucus is convening a group of senators on Tuesday to try to come up with their version of the plan before Mr. Obama takes over the debate. Russ?
Kimberly Dozier at the White House. Thank you very much. The White House is also trying to tamp down the controversy over a speech the president is set to make Tuesday to the nation's school children. Conservatives have accused the president of promoting his agenda to kids, and some school districts will now allow parents to choose not to let their kids see the speech. Don Teague has more.
In Rockwall, Texas, parents of more than 14,000 school children have a choice to make whether to allow their kids to watch President Obama's speech Tuesday or not.
The parents that have given me feedback have thanked us for giving parents the option.
This district has decided kids must have parental permission to see the speech. For some, it's an easy decision.
Part of our job as a parent is to prepare them to be exposed to all kinds of viewpoints and to think for themselves.
Others, like Jeff Schneider, who has 2 children in elementary school, have their doubts.
I don't want my child raised to be a little community organizer.
His major objections, that Obama might use the speech to make political points, and a suggested homework assignment asking children to write a letter explaining what they could do to help the president.
What I had a problem with was the lesson plan that they first put out before the uproar was pretty creepy in an Orwellian kind of way. How can you help Obama?
The White House has since backtracked, changing the assignment, now asking children to write about how they will achieve their education goals.
Again, it's really about personal responsibility and being accountable, setting real goals, and having the work ethic to see them through.
President Obama won't be the first American president to address students in school. Others have done so in the past.
It is a pleasure to be at this wonderful school.
Republican presidents Ronald Reagan in 1988.
The question each student watching today should ask is...
And George H.W. Bush in 1991 have addressed the nation's school children.
Oddly, he actually called on students to write him a letter to tell him how they could help him achieve his administration's goals.
Many students say they welcome a pep talk by the president.
I think it's inspiring to hear our president tell us how to stay in school and stuff.
It motivates me to study harder and get good grades.
The White House says it will release an advanced text of President Obama's speech on Monday, which has some parents asking why they didn't do that in the first place. Don Teague, CBS News, Rockwall, Texas.
White House advisor Van Jones resigned late last night in the face of a firestorm over statements he made prior to taking his post. Jones had made derogatory remarks about Republicans and once signed a petition that suggested government officials allow the 9/11 attacks to occur. The Supreme Court comes back early from vacation this week for a rare rehearing of a case that has already been argued before it. As Wyatt Andrews tells us, the case revolves around the right of free speech and a controversial movie about a high-profile public figure.
Or is she ruthless, cunning, dishonest?
It's a one-sided and highly critical look at the life and politics of Hillary Clinton.
She was the first lady to come under criminal investigation.
But very few people had even heard of Hillary the movie until last year when the U.S. government banned the film and its ads from airing on TV.
You thought what?
I said, how is this possible?
Lead producer David Bossie, a conservative political activist, was told by the Federal Election Commission his ads were a form of electioneering communication.
Wait till you see the movie.
And because Hillary Clinton was then running for president, the ads were banned by law within 30 days of a primary.
It was a political statement, though, during a primary season.
But that's the essence of the First Amendment.
Bossie's claim that the ban violated his First Amendment rights has become one of the most important free speech cases ever. Is it legal to restrict corporate spending on political campaigns?
This is a huge case for democracy.
Fred Wertheimer, an activist for campaign reform, calls this case momentous because David Bossie's advocacy group, Citizens United, is a corporation. And if companies have the same free speech rights as individuals, he says, then all of the laws that limit corporate spending on politics are on the line.
This case is now about whether the immense wealth of corporations in America can be spent to elect or defeat candidates.
Bossie describes the issue more simply. Is political speech free or not?
I'm asking for the right to be able to be heard, the right to have free speech, truly free speech.
Wednesday's unusual court session is also the first for the court's new Justice, Sonia Sotomayor, and she'll be stepping right into a controversy both sides now agree is as big as it gets. Wyatt Andrews, CBS News at the Supreme Court.
Now to a controversy that is as close as your local supermarket shelf. It's all about those familiar government nutrition labels and the brand new labels some manufacturers are adding on their own. Randall Pinkston looks them over.
What's a polyunsaturated fat?
Since the mid-90s, if Americans wanted to know what was in their food, they had to look at government-approved nutrition facts on the side of the box. Now, some packaged foods are getting new front-of-the-box labels.
The purpose is to help people make choices about healthier food and to make different selections than they're making now.
It's called the Smart Choices Program, a system designed by and paid for the nation's major food manufacturers and managed by the American Society of Nutrition. But critics say the program has a very different objective.
The point of this program is to make processed foods look healthy, when what you really want people eating is foods that have been as minimally processed as possible.
Marion Nessel, a nutrition expert, was astounded by some of the products that rate the Smart Choices designation.
This is the first product that I've seen with this logo on it. And I was kind of amazed because this is a sugary cereal.
But food manufacturers say just because a product contains sugar doesn't make it bad.
We believe that the Smart Choices program, taken in its total, will encourage people to eat in line with the U.S. dietary guidelines for Americans.
So far, 10 large food manufacturers like Kellogg's and Kraft are part of the Smart Choices program, with approximately 500 products, including Fruit Loops, Kid Cuisine Constructor Cheeseburger, Teddy Grahams, and Kraft Macaroni and Cheese, carrying the Smart Choices label. The green mark does not mean government approval, but critics say there's a danger some consumers won't know that.
If you saw a cereal with this green check mark on it, what would that suggest to you, this green check mark?
Smart Choices program, that it would be a healthy choice.
The Food and Drug Administration, which regulates food labeling, is keeping close watch on the Smart Choices program. The major concern is that the labels may mislead consumers and encourage them to buy highly processed foods instead of fruits and vegetables. Russ?
Randall Pinkston, thank you very much. And coming up on tonight's CBS Evening News, we'll take a look at what's next for the economy and what tops President Obama's fall agenda. As Washington gets back to work this week, President Obama and his administration are set to have a busy autumn. To help us look ahead, we are joined by CBS News political analyst John Dickerson in Washington and economist Lakshman Achathan here in New York. Gentlemen, good evening to you.
Good evening.
John, I'll begin with you. There's been a lot of talk, of course, about health care, but what do you think? Is that job one for the Obama administration this fall?
Well, healthcare is job one to the extent that it's still in the middle of the process for the president, but job one is still the economy for the White House. That's what people are really, really worried about, and these two issues are connected in some way. The president is trying to say he's had some success on the economy, and that should suggest that he might be able to have some success if his health reforms are put into action.
Okay, John, we'll come back to health care in a minute, but Lakshman, let me ask you on the business front. The markets are up by about 50%. Right. 401ks are looking better and better. Should Americans suspect a prolonged recovery this fall?
Yes, I think it's a real business cycle recovery. The markets, their rise is trying to anticipate that recovery. The real debate that we'll see this fall is how strong of a recovery. Is it going to be one that you notice or one that you don't really feel that much?
I see. Unemployment is still at 9.7%. Those are the latest numbers in August. Can Americans expect to see more jobs created?
I think they can, surprisingly. I think there's a big debate here, but if you work outside of a factory, if you're in the services sector where most people work, 9 out of 10 people work, I do expect you're going to actually see jobs growth by year end. And I think that's actually something that the markets will applaud ultimately when they see it.
John, let me come back to you in healthcare. Is it a given that there will be some type of healthcare bill passed this fall?
Yes, there will be some kind of a bill. It will cover some number of those who are currently uninsured. It will probably have some protections for people who have insurance now so that they don't get denied coverage or lose their coverage. But the reason there will have to be something is this is the key priority for the president, his key domestic policy promise. And there are a lot of Democrats who are going to be up for office in 2010. They need to be able to deliver on this key number one issue.
Well, John, is there a key component that has to be in that bill in order for the administration to consider it a success?
Well, they're going to name anything that passes a success. So passage is the first thing it's got to have in it to succeed. It's going to have to cover some number of the uninsured, as I said. It's also going to have to be either deficit neutral, have enough reform in it so that covering some of those uninsured will be paid for. That will be absolutely crucial because people are very wary about the deficit numbers. And it's going to have to include some of those protections for people who already have insurance because they need to hear there's something in it for them to get behind this reform proposal.
Lakshman, how closely will Wall Street be watching healthcare reform bill, the bill in Washington?
Very closely. There's a whole number of different ways that it impacts Wall Street, certainly for the healthcare companies and things like that analysts will be watching. But also there's concern about the debt, the deficit, and how potential more spending may impact that. But it all also depends on how strong the recovery is. And one other point on the recovery, Wall Street may applaud it because it's actually happening. You've turned the corner. However, Main Street may not feel it right away because you're necessarily starting from such a low point. And that's something to consider.
Okay, a busy few months ahead. Lakshman Achathan here in New York and John Dickerson in Washington. Thank you both very much. Up next on tonight's CBS Evening News, shelter in place, the fireproofing strategy that some experts say is a death trap. Firefighters tipped the balance today against the biggest wildfire in Los Angeles County history. They now have the fire north of the city more than half contained. The blaze has destroyed some 76 homes and fanned the debate over a controversial concept called shelter in place. Ben Tracy explains.
As wildfires whipped across the rugged California landscape this week, some homeowners watched the smoke billow down their block, margaritas in hand.
We get a party in one way or the other, you know.
Yeah. 2 others suffered major burns when they tried to ride out the fire in their hot tub.
I don't know what the disconnect is. It is really unimaginable to me that people are deciding to stay in some of these mandatory evacuation areas.
Yet some fire officials now support an idea that could allow people to remain in their homes during wildfires. It's called shelter in place and imposes stringent construction and landscaping standards. Homes must have indoor sprinklers, non-combustible roofs, and 100 feet of space around the home free of fire-prone foliage. People could stay in their homes during a fire if they cannot safely evacuate. Most California cities discourage this approach, but some newly built communities are trying it.
If you can't get out, you're safer to stay in your home instead of dying on the roadways you drive out.
It can work. After the fires near San Diego in 2007, not a single home in the shelter-in-place communities was lost, including Tim Pacino's.
They told us at 6 a.m. to get out. And that's when I called the front of house gate and said, why get out? We're shelter in place.
Yet during recent Australian wildfires where more than 200 people died, some blame shelter-in-place policies for last-minute evacuations. Many were killed trying to flee.
There's another home burned.
And during the Santa Barbara fires this past May, not all safe houses lived up to their name.
Ironically, this house right here was one they showed off to the media last year as an example of a house that would be safe in a wildfire. Clearly, no match for these flames. Holy mackerel, that home!
While sheltering in place is supposed to be a last-ditch effort to save your life, critics say it's an excuse to develop fire-prone areas.
You got about 2 minutes to get out of here.
And will tie up resources at the last minute when people want to be rescued.
When the panic ensues because you can't breathe and you are choking and your baby is dying, what are you going to do? You are going to run for your life because even indoors, you can't breathe.
Yet the heated debate over whether to stay or go,
I told you to get out! You need to get out now!
rages on. Ben Tracy, CBS News, Los Angeles.
In sports, another upset at the U.S. Open. 2005 champion Kim Clijsters of Belgium, making a comeback, beat Venus Williams to reach the quarterfinals. Clijsters took 2 years off to have a baby. We'll be back.
Of upsets at the U.S. Open.
Finally this evening, defending champion Carl Edwards, broken foot and all, is racing in tonight's big NASCAR race in Atlanta. If he wins, Edwards can credit the help he got from a very special girl who designed his car's color scheme. Mark Strassman has her story.
Carl Edwards is the race leader.
NASCAR Nation knows Carl Edwards as a winner. He drives number 99, the Aflac Ford Fusion car. What matters to him is finishing first.
How you doing? Good.
But to Jody Lawrence, what matters is finishing at all. She's 13 and fighting cancer for the second time.
It was in my spine, my bone marrow, and in my stomach. Hey, Jody, all right?
This summer, her Atlanta hospital sponsored a coloring contest. The winner would redesign the colors of Carl Edwards' car for one race. So Jody drew what she knew.
I guess what I was thinking about, because the hospital, every different room has a different color. The radiology room has blue.
She picked crayons to match the colors of the hospital, colors she sees every week during her cancer treatments.
Anything bothering you? Lumps, bumps, pain anywhere?
Jody's greatest pain came right after her cancer diagnosis. Her mother died. She became an orphan, raised by her sister, Levita.
She may cry, she may sigh, but it's not for long.
She tough?
Extremely tough.
Tough and talented. Her drawing, this drawing, won the contest.
In the coloring contest, there were 55 entries, all from kids with cancer. At the time, Jody didn't know much about NASCAR. She does now. Hey, I'm Carl. Nice to meet you.
First, she met Carl Edwards. Then she saw her drawing come to life on their car.
The car's good. They don't even let me design the car. We can put it in victory lane. It'll look real good.
They are a competitive team.
I like the feeling of winning.
So if you were driving that car, you'd want to win.
Yeah.
That feeling of winning.
Coming to the checkered flag.
To Carl Edwards, it's the checkered flag. To Jody Lawrence, a finish line called remission. Mark Strassman, CBS News, Atlanta.
Look up.
And that is the CBS Evening News. Thanks for joining us this Sunday evening. I'm Russ Mitchell, CBS News in New York. Enjoy your holiday. I'll see you again tomorrow. Good night.